welcome to BadDragonProductions.com. Lesson number 6 of designing our template. Our first website template designing course here is about to take hold. We've gone into our style sheet. We made our menu buttons, and we've made the little anchors for them. Now we're going to make them change color when we float over them, because they're just words in a list. They're list items at this point. LIs. They're nothing else. They're going to be anchors here in a minute though, and they're going to change colors and be our links because we're going to put in our hover styles for them. So we come under our menu links A, anchor points, and we're going to put in another class, a dot menu links, list item, A, hover. So when you hover your mouse over them, they're going to do whatever you want them to do. In this case, we're going to make them change colors, but you could make them underline, or you could make the button itself change colors. I actually have a horizontal nav bars and vertical nav bars lesson with a different template. We're not gonna get into that stuff right now. We're just making the initial menu bar. So dot menu links list item A colon hover. Okay. Opening curly brace, closing curly brace. Now within this hover, we're gonna change them from what we had them red, right? They're gonna be red. Now they're gonna be, what color do we want them to hover to? Let's say blue. Okay. So color, and whenever you're designating like a text color, it's just color. It's not text color or font color or whatever. It's just color. Pound sign, hashtag, blue. Semicolon. Text decoration. We had them non-decorated earlier. Where did we do that? Text decoration was none. Somewhere else, I thought. So, oh yeah, it's right here. None. Text decoration, none. Now we're going to have them underlined. So when you hover over them, they're not only going to change blue, but they're going to go underlined as well. And finally, our font size, we'll just keep it the same. We made them 16s, so we're going to keep them 16s. I've noticed that if you change the font sizes, it's not quite as bad in a vertical list because the words just get bigger and it's not too bad. But if they're in line, when they get bigger, it shifts the whole list over, and it just looks too jerky for me. So I don't usually change any font sizes or make them go bold or italic or anything like that if they're in line. When they're vertical, I might tweak them a little more. So then we're done with the hover part. Save, go back to our index, and we'll go to live view, and we have to make them links now. Okay, so we're going to go list A, okay, chevron or less than sign, A is home, right? Hyperlink, reference, equals, quotes, and then you can browse to if you wanted to pick a page, or you can put in your address, www.somebodysite.com, whatever. In this case, we're going to just use the pound sign again, a hashtag, which makes it work as a link, but it refers to itself, so it doesn't actually go anywhere, but you can check out the cosmetics of it. So it's double quote, hashtag, double quote, and then because we started with an A, we have to have a closing anchor point now. So open list tag, closing list tag, open anchor, now we need a closing anchor. And that will be within the list, less than sign, slash a closing. Now it's a link. This list item is now a link because there's your A. We click refresh. Oops, I forgot my gotta have your chevron in there. It's not gonna work. Refresh. Now it's red, and when we go over it, it turns blue and it's underlined. The others aren't going to do it yet because we haven't put in our anchors. Okay. So just to speed this up just a smidge, I'm going to copy the whole thing, paste it in here, and then change home to samples. And I'm going to do the same thing here and change home to about. Refresh, and now they're all links. And now if we were to view this in an actual browser, this is what your page looks like. It doesn't have the picture, it doesn't have the banner because the banner isn't actually in our home root directory because these are on the desktop, so don't panic. But I just wanted to show you, we're gonna take probably almost a whole lesson here just to show how to move these and why we built this UL that I don't particularly think we really need it. But this now, if we position this menu links UL, this unit unordered list container, it's these right here, okay? They are contained within this thing. If we move this, these will move. So we're going to come back to our samples and we're going to say position relative, because it's relative to the header. It's relative to this header. And actually it'll pop up as soon as we take this word out. We'll kill the menu bar word text and it'll shift the whole thing up a bit. Now here's our link unit, and we could take this out too, and the whole thing shifts up to the center. I'll go back to live view. Now see how we said relative, and I mentioned earlier that everything goes up and to the left. It all wants to make a home right here in the corner. Well, this entire unit goes all the way to the edge right here, so it can't shift left anymore. If we were to make this, 50 pixels wide instead of 900 pixels wide, it would shift all the way over here to the left, and then you'd have to tell it where you want it positioned. And because there isn't the menu bar word that we had, like header and container, we took that word out of there. Now they shifted up to where they're supposed to be, which is right at the top of that header. So we go to our position and we say relative. Actually, now we're going to say absolute. And I'll show you why in a minute. You can absolutely position stuff wherever you want it. The top, and then there's a couple ways we could do this. If we say top, top, we'll say 10 pixels, okay? And it comes up from 10 from the top. So it absolutely is not relative to the header anymore. It's absolute, and it goes straight to the top of the page. If we were to change it to 100 pixels, it pushes it down 100 from the top of the page. And if you put in relative, oops, put relative top 100 relative to the header, and now it pushes it down 100 from the header. So if you have absolute in here, it's absolutely positioned to the page. So it's 100 off the top of the page. If you put relative, it's 100 from its inherited or relative to the thing before it. And being it's in, we're all in this menu bar, now it's 100 from the menu bar. There would be another way if we wanted to. Let's bring it down here. Let's tone this down just a smidge. Let's go 15 pixels. Save. Go back. Now it's right in the middle, okay? There would be another way to do this if you didn't want to position it, if you didn't want to say position relative. I'm just going to put a comment here rather than erase it and then have to, rather than delete it and have to retype it. I just put a comment. So now it goes right back to the top because it's not being told where to position. We could put a top margin. Remember how I said margin pushes things away? If you want it pushed down, you go margin top. Let's say 20 pixels. Go back to your index. And it just pushed. Now if we turn the live view off, we'll be able to see the actual margins. See the margin? This grayed in area. It just pushed it. We said margin top 10 pixels or 20 pixels, whatever we just said. Now it pushes the words, the buttons, the unit, the LI unit, this whole thing. It pushes it 20 pixels off the top of the header because that's where it's at, is below the header. So there's a few different ways you can position things. I don't want this to sound confusing. But you could use a margin to push something over. You can position it absolutely on the page and then say, okay, I want you to be 500 pixels down. Or you could position it relatively to the header and say, I just want it 20 pixels from the top. Or you could not position it at all and just say put a margin on it and push it 10 pixels from the top. Whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I'm not trying to be confusing as much as I'm just trying to show you, demonstrate that a lot of this is kind of, improvise, adjust, and adapt. You know what I'm saying? Now let's turn this live view off again here for a second. You see the little tiny space around the buttons? That's the 2 pixels we gave it as padding. So if we change this padding to, let's say, 20, okay? 20 on all 4 sides. And if we were really going to do that, we'd only need to put 20 once because it would already go around 4 sides if you only mention it once. Save it, we go back. Now these buttons are huge. There's 20 pixels padding inside this button. And then the margin is 0 from the top, the bottom, and the left. They're 20 pixels pushed apart. So if we change that, see how they're 20 pixels pushed apart? If we change that to, let's say, 50, and then it just pushes your buttons farther apart. So margin is outside, padding is inside. And I don't think, what's that look like? Maybe 5 or 6 pixels? Let's take 6 off the bottom and bring the whole thing, we'll bring the whole thing up. Well, let's get rid of the margin. We'll go back to the position of relative, see where it sits. Okay, now we need to pinch them down like 3 pixels. So from padding from the top, we'll give it 18. And padding from the bottom, it looked like maybe 1, so we'll go 19, and we'll see what that looks like. We need to go maybe 1 more, maybe 2 more. So let's go to 16. And there you go. There's your buttons inside your menu bar. And they're relatively positioned to the header. and they would actually be down farther, but we've got so much padding in there it squishes them out. So we could almost turn this off now. We're not going to, or they'll shift up 15, and then you'd have to go down to your padding and make the bottom lower and the top taller and whatever. That looks good from there, so we'll stick with that. And they are animated. They turn blue with an underline. And there you have it. Well, we can take these words out. Turn live view off. Take the words out. And it'll make the page a little cleaner. Oops. Now we'll make a little box. In our next lesson, we'll make a little box to put a title in here and then see how we want to tweak it from there. Thanks a lot for visiting. If you want to watch the whole video in full and download the lesson plan to follow along, go to baddragonproductions.com. Till the next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.